Hi, this is Shane. I am doing a short little screen capture here of a prototype I put together yesterday, but it's something I've been thinking about for years, and implementing it is something I've been thinking about for the last few months. In the channel, there's been a lot of talk about whether we could present the capability to relying parties of finding out whether a user is signed into Firefox accounts, and if so, provide a smoother experience. Over the last couple of months, it became somewhat apparent to me that to be able to do that wouldn't actually be very difficult from where we are right now, especially now that we have quite a lot of support for the OpenID Connect spec, which is essentially an authentication layer over top of OAuth 2. And since we had that, I thought, well, I'll put a half a day into this and see where we can get. And I'm pretty happy with where it came out. What I'm showing off right here is a modified version of 123 done. And instead of the sign in, sign up button, it has something very similar to what Send has right now, which is an enter your email field and a continue. Now we use this on Sync as well. I think a couple of other sites. And it was put in the Slack channel. Last week, there was a massive discussion. It was like 70 some odd responses about if a user is signed in to FxA, can we just show their email address here that says sign in as user? So that's what I'm trying to prototype here. Now you'll see right now 123 done asks for my email. But if I come over here and sign in, hopefully that's the right address. Okay, so I'm signed in. I'm signed in to FxA here. We're all good. I go back over here. You'll notice, hey, sign in as stomlinson at mozilla.com. It knows who I am. Now I click sign in. It gives me essentially, well, a two-click sign in process. First, the button on 123 done, second here. Now we could probably do this with prompt equals none, but there's a whole extra set of questions there. But yeah, it knew who I was. It allowed me to sign in as that user. If I click log out, it still knows who I am. So I can still get the one click back in. But if I go over here and click sign out, come back to 123 done, it no longer knows who I am. So I'd have to type the email address. Obviously, since I don't have a session, I have to sign in again. But back, sign out of the site, but it still knows who I am. So what's happening here is in the background, we are making use of cookies, something that that we've been more or less allergic to doing. Now in that cookie, what I'm storing currently is an OpenID Connect ID token, which is a token that gives you a little bit of information about the user. It's a JWT, it's signed by the OAuth server. It gives you the user's user ID. I've expanded it for the purposes of this demo to actually include the user's email address as well. And what happens is we store that in a cookie that's only accessible on a certain path on the content server. Now, NRP makes a call to that path. I just call it a user info. I called the path for this user info. The cookie is sent. It's an HTTP only cookie that's sent to that path. And the cookie is sent. That cookie is the ID token here. The content server verifies that the ID token is valid, and it gets the user's email address out of it. It returns it to the RP, and then the RP is able to show sign in as stomlinson at mozilla.com. Now, we wouldn't want arbitrary RPs to be able to do this, especially if we open this up to third parties, because obviously this changes the privacy properties of what we are promising to users, because if I went to visit a site such as Send or Monitor, they could find out my email address without me giving it up beforehand, without me authorizing that. So I'm sure legal would have something to say about this. Might have to change our privacy policy. what we can see is that here this works for 1, 2, 3 done. But if I go to our 1, 2, 3 done untrusted, that's called 3, 2, 1 done, we just have to update this here. It doesn't know who I am. That's because that endpoint, that user info endpoint, refuses to give up the information to that site. So we do still protect the user privacy. So we would have some capability of auditing all of these integrations. Now there are some questions still that remain. One of the things that's going to be brought up is the lack of universal logout. So if you log out of this RP, would most users expect that to also sign you out of other services or all other services? Now, OpenID Connect has a spec for that. Now, what we can do is redirect over to a special screen that asks the user, hey, do you want to sign out everywhere? If they click yes, then we send notifications all over the place. But this also has the side effect it might disconnect you from sync too. Now, this stuff can be user tested, so we can figure that out. I think that's probably the biggest question. Oh, the other question is that I brought up earlier is if you sign out of a particular RP and you go to sign in again, would a user expect for you to enter your password? I'm kind of viewing that as security theater at the moment, because as long as we have a session token, there's nothing on the back end enforcing that you have to re-enter your password to get a new OAuth token. Again, that's one of those things that can be user tested. And I'm hoping this little video and demo here can be the starting point for a larger conversation about how we can use this. Now, one of the reasons I put this together is I think this could be a path forward to making the payments page a full RP by essentially using the same scheme with prompt equals none. So I think all the pieces can fit together, and I'm probably going to prototype that out here pretty soon as well. Yes, that's all I have. So thank you. Have a good day.